Hi, good morning. So, we're going to do a little reading, add a little extra time in my schedule. And I also felt like using these cards that we haven't used in a long time, like months and months. I feel like they have beautiful artwork. And so I thought, let's do it. So, thank you for being here. I needed a little boost because I woke up early. I did aqua aerobics. Oh, I love it so much. But I burn a lot of energy, and then I felt like my eyes were like, when your eyes feel heavy, everything else feels pretty awake, but my eyes are like, so I was like, ooh, mushroom coffee. First sip, too hot. Let's go. What do we want to learn about today? I always think of like tarot as a journey of discovery. To me, it's not predictive. To me, it's like a doorway into deeper conversation that comes from a very intuitive place. I think of it being like we are antennas for the information that exists in the field, and these are like our divining rods. Is that the word? It's like the lightning rod for that information to anchor into our physical experience. So I think of tarot in a lot of different ways, but that seems to be resonating with me a lot lately. Again, not predictive, but more like what is asking us for consideration right now. We have the Emperor crossed by the Star. Two major arcana. That's interesting in itself. One moment. What is the interplay of these energies asking us to consider? Well, let's just talk about the Emperor first. In the upright, which is like the primary energy coming through, is one of, it could be, I think, of decisiveness on one side, and then a little bit of like rigidity on the other side. So each card you can they have like light and dark, positive, negative, whatever attributes. I don't even like those words. They're just all things up for consideration. The Emperor embodies one of like caring deeply for his kingdom, right? Everything that is under his guard or responsibility, like everything in your life that you care about and that you take the lead on and you make decisions about. And then something about the rigidity comes in with the Emperor that's asking to like soften a little. The Emperor, if he had something to learn in his life here, it'd be how to still maintain that care and the ability to lead and decide and have courage for your people and like be the rock for people, but be like a softer version of that rock, right? I've never used that analogy before with the Emperor. The Star, by the way, the Emperor is also like has this air of stability about him. So maybe there's something here to say, can you soften your ideas around how you think things should be, and still maintain your feeling of grounded stability? Okay, not that you're just, oh, if I soften this aspect, then it's all gonna fall to chaos. No, it's asking us to have the both and. The Star is one of hopes and dreams and wishes and wish fulfillment, and it's like how I love that these two are kind of juxtaposed, because one is like this I have like maybe a firm idea of how I want things to go, but that might get in the way of me opening up to other possibilities, to really daydream and reach for the stars. Like the Star is also one of like hope and healing. Like there's just this dance between things kind of like solidified, and then with the Star it's one of like unboundedness, bounded versus unbounded. I love that description for those two. When you think about energies that push and pull on each other, we want boundaries, but we also want to flow freely, and both can coexist and be true together. It's like, when do we pull in and like really embody attributes of each one? So we'll see what comes up next. Slurp. So let's go with these guys, our good old classic deck. I don't know, I just love using these, because they were my very first cards. Special bond. All right, so we have the Emperor and the Star. Tell us more. I don't even know where to look. I think I had my camera the opposite way yesterday, so it's throwing me off. Let's see. Four of Cups. The Seven of Cups. This is the card of daydreaming. I love that so much. We just talked about that. And then the Ace of Wands. Oh, this is, so right away, I'm just gonna, from the bottom of the deck, we have Justice, which is, I like to pull one sometimes for an overall energy from the bottom. And another major arcana, and this is about truth seeking. Truth seeking. That's interesting when we think about boundaries, like boundedness and unboundedness, and rigidness and softening, and how all these things are true. And then when do we feel called one way, pushed and pulled in one direction versus another, and when to apply the opposite energy to break something open, or to break ourselves open in some way. So we'll see what that has to do with anything. Justice also has this sense of balance in life, and that's also what we're talking about here with like not being all one way or another. I always clue in when I hear people use the word always or never, because it really, and even in myself too, I recognize when I use those words, because it's really telling. It's really telling, isn't it? Like, it's telling to me, I'll just speak about myself when I hear it from myself, that I must have drifted into a mindset of extremes, of separateness, of judgment, of comparison, all those things that push things into duality versus bring things into oneness. And I think of the word, I was thinking about this morning, the word sometimes. I love the word sometimes, because I feel like nothing is all one way or another. It forever. It's sometimes I feel like that, and sometimes I feel like that. And isn't it so freeing? And it feels like unboundedness. It feels like possibilities. It feels like daydreaming. I wonder, it must be the vibe of the day. It was already on my mind. And this idea of balance, this idea of what's my truth seeking, what's my truth in any moment. And it seems to be one of balancing different energies and not wanting to be all one way or another. Because I find that whenever I lock in on one thing, I immediately almost rebel to the opposite, or want to bounce right off of that. I don't know what it is in me. Do you feel that way too? Like to dig in into one way of being feels like a contraction. It feels like stifledness. And some people might, and I've had this parroted to me, like, don't you have to believe one way. You have to have the conviction of one way of seeing things, because that's what makes change in the world. That's what is activism, all those things. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. You're right, I'm right, we're all right. You can feel your way, I'll feel my way, and balance makes the world go round, right? Okay, so we have the Four of Cups. This is feeling like, sometimes I use the word apathy for this, This just feels like kind of being set in a certain mindset and not wanting to see the gifts that are all around us, meaning the gifts of different perspectives, the gifts of heart opening perspectives. Like I have this certain way of seeing things. It kind of makes me a little stagnant. Apathy feels like stagnancy. Why does that word keep coming up? We'll just go with it. This is the card of possibilities and daydreaming. It's literally the daydreaming card in tarot, the Seven of Cups. And it can mean a lot of things. Like some people say, be careful what you wish for. I never really think about it that way. To me, it's like, sometimes it could be analysis paralysis. Like I have so many options. What do I choose? Maybe it's like I've got to think through every possibility. To me, this feels like an opening, moving from a Four of Cups, where it's like I have all these possibilities, but I'm not seeing them because I'm too rigid in the way I'm viewing things, or I'm too bound up, I'm too constricted, right? Too stagnant. And this feels like we're moving into an opening phase. Like what's going to move us? And I think that might be my question for clarification. The thing I'm curious about is how do we move from that Four to the Seven? How do we move into a state of openness? How do we move from the Emperor more into the Star energy? Both, I'm not saying you have to be one way or another, that the Emperor is bad. My God, I need some Emperor energy in my life. Like that whole like be big, be bold, like charge forward. And then a lot of times I'm like, wee, let's be a star. Okay, so then we move to the Ace of Wands, which is this, usually the aces are like a fresh new way, like a new start. And sometimes it's like a new start that seems to drop from the sky. That's why we call it a divine start with something, or a divine gift. And with the wands, it's about inspiration. Like what is this? It's being divinely given to us. Bloop, your divine inspiration for this opening, this moving into this daydreaming of possibilities. I just want to back up because what I'm feeling right now is like all the things we talked about, yes, and it feels big. It feels like collectively in our culture we've been in this like things, like I think about the decades and like what each one has meant to me. And when I think back, no decade has been one way or another, right? But whatever point what age we were when we grew up through a decade, we might reflect back on that decade with these certain specific attributes. And man, I look at the 2000s into the 2010s as dark times. Dark times were descending. Why do I feel that way? Probably because I was in my angsty 20s figuring stuff out and like, I don't know. And now I feel like there's an opening, but that's me going into midlife and menopause and all the life changes of like throwing off the shackles of, okay, I thought things had to look a certain way and I kept trying to fit them, a peg in a hole, whatever that analogy is. And then I'm like, F it, you got to do things your way. You got to think your way, be your way. And that's the phase of life I'm in where it's like, that's the way it's always been, no matter what decade, right? It's all about our own unique journeys. And whenever we hit that point of like, this is how we're conditioned, and then we break the conditioning. It's as simple as that. And it feels like a story like that, where it's like the Emperor is all about conditioning because this is the way things had to be done for the good of the tribe, keep humanity moving in a direction. And then you had the dreamers and the artists and the star people who were like, look at these possibilities, and then moving things really ahead. Those are the people who really make change, the what if people. And then the emperors come in behind them and they're like, oh yeah, we'll do some of that. As if that was their idea all along, right? But it's really, you look back in history, and I don't have great examples on top of my head. I didn't know it was going to go this way, or I would have prepared. That's not what tarot is about. There are these moments in time where somebody was way out, some artist or philosopher or scientist, science is art, was way out on the bleeding edge of something, dropped a nugget in our humanity to say, what about about this? And everybody was like, you are crazy. Whatever. But then years go by, and then that idea starts to really gain some momentum with people and turns into like, oh, that's the way we've always believed. Well, no, it isn't. It was those change makers who were way out on that bleeding edge, not the leading edge, but the bleeding edge where it really hurt. They took the jabs for their beliefs and their ideas. This feels like us really seeing the truth of that story, right? Is that be your weird self, do your weird thing to its fullest, and don't worry about being on the bleeding edge. It always hurts. But then people come around and they're like, yeah, it's my idea all along. And isn't that fun? And you can just quietly be like, yep. Instead of following the herd and just playing it safe and being small. This feels like a total shift from contraction, like this kind of energy, kind of apathy too, but really about just feeling and playing small. I just want to keep doing this because that's where you don't even see the possibilities. You're just like, well, this is the way it's always been done. Now, if that's the overall storyline, let's get some of the clarifications and the nuance. Like, what else are we supposed to think about with that? In your life, where do you feel that right now? Maybe it's the full moon that's coming tomorrow, where I've been feeling all the feels and like want to bring up into the light things that have been wanting to be birthed, right? Do you feel that in your life? Sorry, I'll make sure nobody's walking up. I see cars pulling up. I did some teeth whitening. I know. And it made my teeth a little sensitive when I drink this coffee. Oops. Wouldn't have to do the whitening if I didn't drink the coffee, perhaps. So anyway, just a little side note. What are you curious about? If we're moving from this, I really feel it though. I really feel it. And it must just be because I'm in this phase of my life that I feel these things. Because I do look at other people and I know they're not feeling it, but a lot of us are. And if you're one of those people, where do you feel like you're really starting to turn a corner, or you're even seeing that there is a corner ahead? You're like, oh, I want to go around that corner. I want to switch trajectories. Like, what is it for you that feels like this opening into the what if phase of life instead of the what is phase of life, or what has always been phase of life? And now this feels like, what if? I just want to keep like throwing off the old conditioning that we've been brought up with. It was designed to keep us in line, keep us safe, keep us part of the tribe. And now things are shifted a little with the way our world is, where if we go rogue, it doesn't mean imminent death. Like if we left the tribe and we're out here all alone on the plains, where we're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I ever learned how to find water or how to hunt. It's like we're not going to die if we go against the grain. We've evolved to the point in our society where most of us, generally speaking, I think if we put a crazy idea out there, we're not going to be burned at the stake. Like there are all kinds of analogies in the olden days of like, it meant imminent danger to go against the grain. Now, depending on your perceptions and maybe who you're aligned with and what your field of work is and whatever, it may feel like that, and it may be financial threat, it may be, I don't know what, depends on what you're contemplating. But I say like simple little go against the grain, share your crazy ideas, do your weird art, whatever it is. Take up a new hobby and not care what your friends think, right? Could be as simple as that. So I'm curious, first of all, share with me what your little turn up ahead is, and like what's this, do you feel that shift in your life of like an opening? And if so, what do you feel like it might be about? Sometimes we don't even know what it's about, but it's like it could just be I'm effing sick of feeling small, right? It's like, I finally want to step into my authenticity, whatever yours is, whatever that feels like for you. And to me, that's a being your big self, right? So I kind of want to know if the overall trajectory is from this is the way it always has been to the what if phase of life, the what if trajectory, and that this is like divinely inspired. This is like, do you feel you're inspired for something? Let's get some more nuance into like how that shift is happening and maybe what this inspiration is really about. Of course we get the Fool. Of course we get the Fool. You get the Two of Swords too. Woo! A lot of inspiration in that card. Intuition, not inspiration. Queen of Swords. What's she here to tell us? Okay, we're going to start with those. Right here in the center, with the clarifications, I love the way they seem to work out. Again, I can make meaning out of anything. But the Two of Swords is one of, you can think about weighing sides. There's a blindfoldedness and these like things that seem to be keeping her, I was going to say bound up, but they're just strings. They're perceived annoyances or limitations in the way we might be trying to make a decision. Like something is keeping us a little like distracted from that decision. And this is saying tap into your deepest intuition when weighing these sides. So when you think about the going with the grain and going against the grain, let's just call it that, because this is going with the grain. This is somebody who has like a firm idea of what they believe and the way they want to see things work out. The nice thing about the Queen of Swords is she also has this ability to, she's also a water element, which has the ability to feel deeply. And she is really good about assessing the intentions of something or maybe the potentials of a situation. So there's good and bad with everything. I feel like she can be a little rigid. She kind of holds people at a distance to understand their intentions. And so this is one of like still keeping a distance. Like, I'm not quite sure about you. So she's a little skeptical. Okay, so what does that mean in juxtaposition with the Fool? There's no skepticism with the Fool at all. It's like complete opposite. And this is like trust falling, you know. I think of the Fool as like literally, look at that. Like no danger perceived whatsoever. And this one is all about, are you a threat or not? Like, what are your intentions before she kind of chooses to let somebody close to her or go a certain direction? Like, how's this going to pan out? What's going to happen? Like, and I'm not saying those are bad qualities. It's just complete opposite of this. So the Two of Swords right here in the center is like weighing two different options of being. So I think that's fascinating when we were talking about boundedness versus unboundedness, skepticism versus complete faith and trust that everything's going to work out exactly as it's meant to, no matter what I do, especially if I let go of any ideas of rigidity or like, this is how I've always done things. What would happen if I didn't do it that way anymore? What would happen if I switched careers? What would happen if I took up a new hobby without any idea that I'm even going to like it? Like, so let's just try it because it sounds like fun, right? So what else are you curious about? Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Honestly, it was a pee break. And then what came to me was this, empowering questions. So let's get some questions. I haven't pulled these for a while, but I really like how we can, that's weird, put that in backwards. pull these and see how they might align with the reading, like where, and it kind of maybe adds a different color or flavor to the question itself, which I like, because something means something different every time you look at it, or every time you contemplate it. So the same question on a different day in a different context could open up different possibilities, which is what this reading's about, moving into a phase of what if. So I'm curious about what questions can we ask ourselves to keep moving into this phase of trusting. It's like when I think of what if and daydreaming, I feel like it's a trust that the journey, like going back to the whole discovering the journey you're on, not even knowing what the map is, let alone not even knowing how to read the map. You just don't have a map. And trusting that without a map, I'm going to take a step forward and learn a lot, play around, enjoy the space I'm in, till I want to take another step, enjoy the space I'm in. What am I seeing? What am I learning? Who am I meeting? Like, every step of the way is a trust fall and just being in the moment. Now, what questions can we ask ourselves that might help us in that direction? Ooh, what is that? How do I deal with loneliness and isolation? To me, the way that is related to this is when we talked about not caring what your friends think, right? If you decide to switch directions, you might ask yourself this: how do I deal with loneliness and isolation? If I totally go against the grain, do I need to ask myself, why does that bring up a fear in me of going against the grain? Why, like sharing an unpopular opinion, right? Or sharing the fact that you have no opinions. That's kind of mine. And sometimes it scares me. If people really knew how much I don't have opinions on things, man, I feel like it's taboo in our culture. But anyway, how do I deal with loneliness and isolation? So basically, this question, taken just back a level, would be like, what's the worst that could happen? What's the deepest fear that I can summons up? Like, what's the worst that could happen if I do XYZ? The thing that's been burning in me forever. What's the worst that could happen? And then play that out to its conclusion. Go dig into all the scary thoughts. I just love that so much, because that's often what keeps us bound up, right? It keeps us blind to the possibilities, or not even trying. It's like, oh, nope. So how do I deal with, and sometimes we can't even put a point on it, right? Like, there are fears in there that we don't know we have until we ask ourselves, what's the worst that could happen? Let's see another one. How can I create a more balanced life? We were just talking about balance. How can I create a more balanced life? That's so broad. I feel like there's a million answers to this. So pick yours. Right now, I'm trying to have balance with movement and stillness in my body. That's one balance I'm trying to bring into my life versus all movement or all stillness, because neither one has led me to very healthy places. Also, this idea, I really struggle with the Emperor and the Star in my life. And how can I bring balance to a boldness and a firm vision? Having a firm vision, some direction I want to go. Because without a direction, I feel like I'm going nowhere. I'm not doing what's in my guts to do before I die. And then the Star, sometimes I'm all like, wee, what are all too many options? And then I'm like, analysis paralysis. Time's running out. I gotta pick one and go with it. That's an old story. That's just so silly to me, yet it still plays out in my life. And so I'm trying to, the balance I'm trying to create is playing with the possibilities, but without the expectation that any one of them has to amount to anything. Like, I can be bold in a moment of creativity without having to be bold in saying that this is what I'm all about. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference, like in the moment, the boldness of the moment. I don't know why I'm saying that. Like fullest expression every moment. Sorry, bras are stupid. Oh God, they're so stupid. That's another thing. I just want to burn the bras. But I get it. Sometimes they're comfortable for some people. Oh man. If you had to live inside my brain. Okay, so let's get one more question. What are the operating principles of my life? Oh, okay. I have been kind of I've been thinking about this for a while now, okay? What are the operating principles of my life? Oh my God, just this morning, it was a shower thought. I was like, when was this? It was literally just this morning. What are the operating principles of my life? I was thinking about this idea of boldness and like moving into this possibilities phase of life and like not giving an F how people might judge me, because that's all about them. It has nothing to do with me, right? Just like me judging you has everything to do with the ickiness going on in here, then it has nothing to do with you, right? So that being a fundamental truth, then I was like thinking about like the whole, what fears do I have? Well, none really. Once you get rid of the fear of what other people think, oh my God, that is such a big one that influences so much. Speaking for myself, once I stopped caring about that, like preemptively, like judging people for judging me, like how insane, that's insanity. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't care what other people, or I care, but I'm not affected by what other people think. I'm not attached. It has no influence over me, right? Finally. So then I think about, well, then who the hell am I? Who am I? And I love that question. Like, that's what we're all here to do, is like like know who we are. Like, that's the know thyself that's written on the whatever of whatever, right? I know nothing. I literally know nothing, and I love it. So I know it's infuriating for some people to say things without quoting them or sourcing them, or like saying it's written on the whatever. Yeah, I think that's written on the tomb of something, or the scrolls of something. Know thyself. It's such a fundamental principle of the human experience, right? Like, we come here to like deeply know ourselves. And so I'm in that phase of life of like, who the hell am I? And versus like, who have I brought up? What's my conditioning? What beliefs have I adopted about myself? What fears am I still perpetuating about knowing or not knowing myself? Or like what other people perceive me to be? And do I have to align with that? Do I have to people please? No. So what are the operating principles of my life? I was literally just thinking about that this morning, as in like, what makes me uniquely me, right? And then my brain went all sorts of ways, like, no one is unique, we're all the same. It went to that extreme, right? When you really dive into it. And then you think about like, everyone is so unique. Everything is unique about everyone. So what makes you unique is like, what are the operating principles of my life? That is such a boring way to phrase that sentence, right? To me, I'd rather say, what makes you uniquely you? Because I feel like it's not even, maybe unique isn't even the right word, because that means that it has to be different than anybody else, right? Well, it's going to be different just by the nature that you're a different person. And so whatever it is gets expressed differently through you. So it's almost like, what makes you tick? You know, here's another quote from High Fidelity. I feel like I'm quoting that movie in every reading. Aren't you sick of it yet? Ah, quit judging me. So, this movie has so many great quotes. And one of them is like something about, again, misquoting. It's probably infuriating. It's not a, it's like, he was like, there's the narrator part of this movie saying, oh no, he's like narrating to the camera. He does that a lot in this movie, John Cusack. And he's like, I realized long ago, it's not about what you're like, but it's about what you like. Like, what are the things you like? That it says way more about you than you saying, well, I'm like this, and this is so me, and I'm so like this. Like telling people what you're all about is like it feels like a layer abstracted. I'm gonna have to dig up the real quote. It's way better than what I said, but it feels like a layer removed, like an analysis on top of something that separates you from the core fundamental thing. So it's like the what you like is way more important. Like, I like this mushroom coffee. What's that say about me? Right? And we know fundamentally it really says nothing about you, but it says a lot more about you than you saying, well, I'm such a coffee person. Like, well, I like reading tarot. I like talking to cameras, I guess. And then I like writing. I like reading. But it's more than that. That's almost too generic. It's like, get specific. I like like what's weird about you that you could say, well, this is what I like, and people would be like, no way. That's amazing. That's so weird. That's so something I would have never thought to like before. Let me try it. Like, what is it about you? So that's what I think about. What are the operating principles of my life? Well, I like when you think about principles, and to me, those, it kind of means the same thing as like values in a way. Like, what do you really value in life? What means so much to you that it's like a guiding light, a North Star in your life that you can always align to when you feel like, what's my North Star? Where am I going? Or what do I believe in? What inspires me? What makes me feel like I'm doing good things in the world? And so that's what I think about. What you like says a lot about that too. And I think about one of my favorite traits about myself, which is, it's been hard for me to speak like that because it feels kind of like, tooting your own horn, egotistical, like whatever. But that's a toxic trait we have in culture, isn't it? Where we just don't value ourselves. It's a self-worth thing. So talking nice to ourselves. So I think about how one of the traits I love about myself is like, it feels like, it may not be true, but in most of my interactions, like with strangers, let's say, I just want them to smile. Like, and it's not even about pleasing, like the people pleasing side of things. Like, the toxic trait of that would be like me, like I want you to smile at me, for me, because of me. It's not that, because I've inquired into this, believe me. And when I think about it, I'm like, I just want them to light up. I just want to see their smile, because to me, I'm going to cry. That's the most authentic place within a person, is like the light in here makes its way to the surface. Oh, I'm going to cry, you guys. And that's another trait I like about myself. This just turned into a self-love video. So anyway, I think about, well, that's uniquely me, even though it's not unique to me. But that's why, like, I have a love, not love relationship with the word unique, because it has baggage. But like, what is so fundamental to what I like to do in the world, what I like to see in the world, what I like versus what I'm like. Right? I gotta go dig up that quote for you guys. I gotta go. This is way too long-winded and it's turning into not a reading. But I did ask for questions into how to move more into the space of what if. How do I deal with loneliness and isolation? Basically, to get rid of the rigidity, it's like, how bad can it get? What's the worst that could happen, right? That is a great question. How can I create a more balanced life, right? Because we don't want all one way or another. It hasn't really led to great things in the world, has it? Being at the extremes. Being at the extremes for too long, anyway, is a whole different bag. What are the operating principles of my life? Boring. But like, what are my values? What lights me up? What inspires me? What is my North Star? Let's just call it that. And that can, like, when you get into the land, if you get to the extreme of the star, if you get to the extreme of daydreaming and get into analysis paralysis, and it becomes overwhelming, then this can be something to anchor back to. What are my what's my core? Like, what is it about you that just, like, it needs to be expressed, or you don't feel like you? You don't feel like you, right? So I think that's where we'll end it. We got some answers to some questions. We got some questions to some answers and some answers to some questions. Thank you for being here.